Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another video. I am so excited for today's video because I feel like I film a good amount of reading vlogs on my channel, but I've never done a reading challenge, and I've been wanting to do a 24-hour readathon for a while now, but the timing and what I wanted to read for them just haven't aligned. But it is now December 9th. I have not completed a single book this month yet. I have so many books on my holiday TBR that I've been wanting to get through, and for one reason or another I just haven't. So I'm setting aside this weekend to start a 24-hour readathon, and there will be a theme to the readathon since I'm planning to only read holiday and Christmassy books. I know people film 24-hour readathons a few different ways. For this video I am going to be doing the timer method, starting the timer whenever I'm reading, stopping it whenever I am not. So this video could span the course of just this weekend, it could be the next few days, maybe even up to a week or longer, hopefully not. But I think it'll be fun to see how long it takes me to read for 24 hours and how much I can get read in that time. And I'm hoping this will just help me get through a bunch of the books that I have on my holiday TBR. So I'll tell you guys what I'm in the middle of right now, which will be the first book I'm reading for the readathon, and then we'll kind of go through the TBR, what's on my radar for the rest of the readathon. So I've currently started and I'm on page 98 in Love Light Farms by B.K. Borison. I've heard so many good things about this book. I hear it recommended all the time for winter and for the holidays. It was actually on my TBR last winter and I didn't get around to reading it, so I prioritized it as the first book I wanted to read this December. This is a friends to lovers fake dating romance. We're following our main character Stella, who runs this Christmas tree farm, but the Christmas tree farm is having some financial difficulties. So Stella enters in this Instagram contest where she could win not only a cash prize but exposure to hopefully alleviate some of the financial issues that she's having. The only thing is though, Stella lies on the application when she's entering the contest and says that she runs the farm with her boyfriend, but she doesn't have a boyfriend. She's just trying to embellish the story a little bit, make it sound more romantic to help improve her chances at winning the contest. So she ends up asking her guy best friend Luca to be her fake boyfriend. If you know me, you know friends to lovers is my very favorite romance trope. Fake dating is up there too. This book has my name written all over it, and with all the good things I've been hearing about it, I was so excited for it and just convinced that I was gonna love it. But I have to say, so far, almost 100 pages in, I am just a little bit disappointed. I don't know what it is. Something about the book just feels a little bit flat to me. I don't know if it's the characters or the plot, but it just surprises me how many people say this book is so good, because right now it's feeling very mediocre. It's cute and I feel like the two main characters have good chemistry, but I feel like I love Friends to Lovers so much because it feels so realistic. Like these two people want to be together, but they don't want to cross a boundary that could potentially ruin their friendship. It just feels like it could happen in real life and I love it. But in this book I feel like I said, the characters have great chemistry, but their friendship is very physical. Like they're very touchy-feely with one another. They hold hands, they cuddle. Why would they have not crossed into romance territory before now? That's my only thing with the couple. Other than that, I do like them. I don't know, I'm gonna keep reading, but right now I'm not really loving it the way that I thought I would. As far as the TBR for the rest of the readathon goes, I would like to read 'Tis the Season for Revenge by Morgan Elizabeth. This one I've heard is supposed to be like Legally Blonde, but the holiday version where our main character is dating this lawyer, but then he ends up dumping our main character and she ends up getting revenge on him by dating his boss. The next book I want to get to is Snowed In by Catherine Walsh. I am so excited for this one because Catherine Walsh wrote my favorite holiday romance from last year. It's called Holiday Romance. It might be my favorite holiday romance ever. I loved it so much. It felt very reminiscent of an Emily Henry, Abby Jimenez kind of book, and I've heard that this book kind of comes after that book, is like a little companion novel. I don't know much about the plot, but I think this one is fake dating. It takes place in Ireland again. Our two main characters, I think they're just trying to get their families off their backs during the holidays, so they fake date one another. That's all I know, but I'm so excited with how much I loved holiday romance last year to read another Catherine Walsh holiday book. And I also have Baggage Claim by Juliana Smith on my radar. I think this is another fake dating where our main female character is going home for the holidays, again trying to get her mom off her back, so she says that she's bringing her boyfriend home with her, but she doesn't have a boyfriend, so she ends up striking up a deal with a guy I think that's sitting next to her on the plane and asks him to be her fake boyfriend. So lots of fake dating holiday romances on the TBR for this readathon. I'm gonna finish Love Light Farms first though before jumping into something else, and I will let you guys know how that goes. I've been reading for about 2 hours. I'm at the page 200 mark now. I felt like those were good even numbers to stop off and film an update because this book is getting so much better and I'm so glad. I can definitely see why everyone recommends it now. I feel like before the plot just felt kind of non-existent, which I'm the kind of person that doesn't need a strong plot. As long as I can get really invested in the character development, it doesn't matter to me too much if there's a good story or not, but I feel like I have to have one or the other, and the first 100 pages of this I felt like we're just kind of lacking in both areas. But now I feel like little things have been hinted at where it's like, okay, we're gonna get more of that in the future. I can tell it's gonna come into play because we're not getting like all the answers, but just like a little hint of something will be sprinkled in, and I feel like it's adding more depth to the story. And I love our two main characters so much. They have great chemistry. Their friendship being kind of like touchy-feely and then being physical with one another has kind of been touched on, so that part of it isn't really bothering me as much, and now I'm just like really rooting for them to get together, and there's so much tension and I'm just loving the way their dynamic is written because it is so good. They have so much chemistry. Just to show you guys the font and the margins, amazing. I feel like I'm gonna fly through this book. The 3 books I read before this were all like 500 plus page fantasies with really teeny tiny font and really high word counts, so this is just a breath of fresh air. But it is getting so much better. I feel like the more I read, the better it's getting, so I'm just so excited to fly through this. I definitely think I'm gonna want to binge it today, and I'll let you guys know along the way how much I've read, where we are as far as timer goes, and my thoughts. I'm getting pretty close to finishing Love Light Farms now. I've been reading for almost 5 hours. I'm on page 331 and it just keeps getting better and better. I am obsessed with the two main characters and their relationship. The chemistry is so good, and the way they're written, they just kind of have this maturity about them, and it almost reminds me of like an Abby Jimenez book. I just am eating everything up. The storyline is keeping my interest. Everything about it I'm just obsessed with. I love all the side characters in here too. It's definitely setting it up for them all to get their own books, and if you know me, you know I'm such a seasonal reader, and all the books in this series take place during a different season. Like the next book in the series takes place during the spring, the next one takes place during the summer, so best believe I will be continuing on with this series and reading each book in the appropriate season. Something about that just like is so satisfying to me. I love it, and I love this book. I didn't know what to expect for the spice in here because I've heard people talk about how the sex scenes in here are really good, but just very different to anything that you normally read about in a romance book, and I feel like that is so accurate. Like the sex scenes in here, you don't want to skim over them. Like they're just really well written. These characters, this couple, they just have such a deep emotional connection as well as a physical connection, so it is just so good. If you've started this book and feel a little bit disappointed by it, keep going, because I do think the first 100 pages are different to how the rest of the book ends up going. Like it just gets so much better and I'm loving it. Guys, I finished Love Light Farms. It took me a little over 6 hours to get through the rest of this book. And while I do think it took me a while at the start to get into it, like the first 100 pages, I wasn't loving it. From there, I do think it just got better and better. I loved the story. I loved the characters. They felt very mature and just had this depth to them. It reminded me a lot of like an Abby Jimenez type book and the characters that she writes. I feel like the friends to lovers and fake dating tropes in this just gave the story so much tension. I could not wait for the couple to get together, and when they did, it was just perfect. The story was so well paced and I really loved it. I can't wait to continue on with this series. I think I'm gonna wait until the end of the readathon to tell you guys my final ratings on all the books, but I did really enjoy this one and would highly recommend it. I love the dedication in this book. To all the girls who knew Elle was always too good for Warner, and for all the girls who were told they were too much. let him go find less. I've started the second book that I'm going to be reading for this readathon, which is 'Tis the Season for Revenge by Morgan Elizabeth. This one, I knew it was Legally Blonde coded, basically like the holiday version of that movie. And so far, that seems to be pretty accurate. Our main character, Abby, was dating this like jerk lawyer named Richard, and basically he's picking Abby up for this Halloween party. Abby put so much effort into her costume to try and impress him and impress his colleagues. She was so excited because Richard never brought her to a work event, so she was wanting to make a good first impression. And Richard basically is like, what are you wearing? Makes fun of her costume, ends up breaking up with her. He's like, you're not good enough for me. You were just a placeholder. And he is such a jerk. And then it flashes to Damien's perspective, who is Richard's boss at the law firm. And he is at the Halloween party. He sees Richard and he's like making fun of Richard. He's like, he's the only one that didn't dress up for Halloween for this party. He's so lame. And so it's really setting up Richard to be like the villain character and Damien to be complete opposite of him. And I'm loving it so far. It's so fun. I love the little revenge plot line. They're trying to get revenge on Richard. Abby and her friends are like having a little girls' night, and the plan is for her to date Richard's boss. I am 24% of the way through this book. Abby and Damien are now on their first date, and they're just making small talk, getting to know each other, talking about the weather. And Abby is talking about how she likes both the hot and the cold weather. She's like, I like the hot when it's appropriate, like in the summer and on vacation, and I like the cold in the winter, but I only like it to snow at specific times. And so she's like explaining this all to Damien, and she's like, I like it to snow on Cyber Monday. And he's like, really? She's like, yeah, you can sit at home and shop. And he's like, and no snow Black Friday? She's like, no, people have to drive to get to work. It's no fun to drive to work on the shittiest retail day of the year and also deal with snowy roads. And then he's like, so you're worried about the workers and not the shoppers? And she's like, have you ever worked retail? No, can't say I have. If you had, you'd know how horrible it is to work retail on Black Friday. Absolute hell that whole weekend. So no snow is acceptable the weekend after Thanksgiving. And he's like, got it. If you ever worked retail, you will relate to that so hard. I love that Abby is a retail girly. I worked retail for over 5 years. Worked 5 Black Fridays, and it truly is like the worst shift to work ever. So that had me relating to her so hard. If you're a retail girly, I feel like you will be able to relate to our main character Abby in this. We just had our first spicy scene. I wasn't expecting this to be a slow burn by any means, but I feel like it's just a lot really quickly. It went from 0 to 100 really fast. I don't know, the sex scene kind of made me take a few steps back. It just icked me out, for lack of a better term. That's just how I feel. Something about it, like, I don't know, the dirty talk was kind of icky. Damien, I felt like he was so sweet and I was loving his character, but he just became someone like completely different during the spicy parts, and not in like the way you might be thinking, like not in a fun, good way, like not in like a bad way, but just like it icked me out a little. And that is exactly how I felt last year when I read Window Shopping. I felt like the way the main character in that book was during the spicy scenes, it like felt so out of character for him to how he was the rest of the book. Like, don't get me wrong, I like to see another side come out to these characters during those kind of scenes, but not in this kind of way. Like, it's just something about it. And I feel like it's trying to highlight all the ways that Damien is so different from Richard, and it's like not being subtle at all. I'm sad because I was having such a fun time with this book before, but we'll see. Maybe it was just this scene. I'm gonna keep reading. And we've officially made it halfway. Hi guys, last night I finished 'Tis the Season for Revenge. I stopped the timer right past the 12-hour mark, so we've hit halfway now. And unfortunately, I did not enjoy 'Tis the Season for Revenge. I would not recommend it. The first few chapters had so much promise. I love the premise of this book. I love Legally Blonde. I feel like it was setting up the story to be so good. And the first few chapters had me like kicking my feet, giggling, screaming. I was loving it. And from there, I feel like once the spice kicked in, it was just too much too soon for me. And I could have maybe looked past it, but The dirty talk just was not it for me. I didn't like the way that specifically Damien talked to Abby. I didn't like it. It didn't do it for me. And I feel like from the halfway point to the end, the story was just such a mess. Like, there was no plot. I feel like every scene, aside from the couple when they were alone and the sex scenes, was a mess. Like, there was one part where Abby brings Damien home with her to spend Thanksgiving with her and her family, and it's literally one paragraph of them getting there and her being like, oh, this is my sister, this is her husband, this is my neighbor, and then they discuss the sleeping arrangements, and then it's like 10-page sex scene, and then it's one paragraph of them being like, okay, that was fun, thanks for having us, happy Thanksgiving, bye, and that was it. And I'm like, okay. And I felt like there were several other instances of things like that happening in the book. I don't know, if I had enjoyed the sex scenes, that would be one thing, but I wasn't. I felt like there was not enough of an emotional connection there, which I personally need in my romances, so I just wasn't rooting for the couple that hard. The Christmas vibes also were not there. I feel like it was leading up to this Christmas party. Aside from that, and it taking place in New York, it wasn't super Christmassy, so it wasn't like it was getting me in the holiday spirit or anything. I didn't enjoy it, and I wouldn't recommend. So with that, I'm going to move into Snowed In by Catherine Walsh. This book is also on KU, and I am so excited for it. I'm excited for a story that has some emotional depth, characters that are hopefully going to have more of a connection outside of a physical connection, and I just can't wait to read more from Catherine Walsh because, like I said, she wrote my favorite holiday romance last year, and I just can't wait to dive into that same world and read more of her writing. So I have really high hopes for Snowed In, and I will let you guys know how I'm liking it. I've been reading for about an hour, and I'm 15% of the way into Snowed In. And going into this, like I said, I didn't really know the details of what this book was about. I just kind of knew that the trope was fake dating. But this book does take place in the same universe as Holiday Romance. I would recommend reading that book first because in this book, our male main character, Christian, is Andrew from Holiday Romance's brother. And we get mentions and cameos of some of the characters from the first book, which I love. I just love seeing these characters again and it taking place in this same world that I fell in love with from the first book. I would say Christian is more of our bad boy character, especially growing up. He was like the bad boy in school, but he ended up being like really smart. He has a good job. Our female main character, Megan, is kind of the opposite. She's more of a goody two-shoes. She was definitely like more studious, teacher's pet type. She and Christian were in the same class, but they were never friends or enemies. They were just kind of acquaintances. They knew of each other, but they didn't really interact. Megan actually dated a guy in their class named Isaac all throughout high school, and they ended up being engaged. But on their wedding day, we see that Megan ran away off to Dublin, and 5 years later, she's reconnecting with Christian, who also lives in Dublin now, and neither one of them want to go back home for the holidays. Megan hasn't been back since her wedding day, and she feels like the whole town just hates her. Christian doesn't want to go back home because everyone in his family is coupled up and he is the only single person, so he suggests that they fake date to help each other out, help get their families off their backs, and to ease some of the stress that comes with being around your family for the holidays. Megan at first is like, absolutely not, that is such a dumb idea, but she's starting to warm up to the idea. I feel like Christian is obviously going to convince her since this is a fake dating romance, but I am loving it already so much. It is just a breath of fresh air reading this, especially after coming off of the last book. I'm already so invested in the story. The characters already have so much depth to them and so much dimension. The dialogue and the banter is so witty. I love the Irish sense of humor. It's so funny. I have been laughing out loud like multiple times, so I'm just loving this. I feel like I'm just gonna binge this book all day long. I'll definitely update you guys if I have any more thoughts, but so far I'm loving it so much and I can't wait to find out what's gonna happen. Hi guys, it is now day 3 of this readathon. Yesterday I read for about 5 hours and snowed in, so I have about 7 hours total left in the readathon, which I'm pretty proud of. I feel like the timer method really is helping me to read for longer periods of time and just stay focused. It kind of motivates me because I'm like, okay, if I put my book down, I have to stop the timer, and it's like a whole thing. So I feel like it really is helping me to read more and knock out these books that I have on my TBR. But as far as my thoughts on Snowed In go, I'm 68% of the way in and I'm still loving it. I do think I loved the beginning more than I'm loving this middle section, just because the setting has now changed. So Megan and Christian are now in their hometown for the holidays, and a lot of new side characters have entered the chat because they're with all their family members. And I really like the scenes more when it's just Megan and Christian because their banter is so good and it's so funny. And I loved like seeing them back in Dublin when they were on dates and at the pub together. It was just super cute. So now it has slowed down a little bit. I was holding out yesterday and trying not to stop reading until we found out why Megan left her ex-fiance at the altar. I didn't know like if it was gonna be a thing. I figured it would, but I did find that out yesterday. And at the point I put the book down, they're now at this cabin and there's a snowstorm. So I'm assuming based on the title, they're about to get snowed in, and it's gonna be this forced proximity situation. It's gonna bring them closer, and I can't wait to see how everything ends. Today is a work day for me, so I'm not able to read as much, but I just am like counting down the seconds until I can pick up this book again and be back with these characters, back in this world. I just can't stop thinking about them because I love it so much. Hopefully I'll get a good amount of reading done tonight after work, and I will let you guys know how it goes. Last night I finished Snowed In by Catherine Walsh, and without giving away my final star rating, I loved it so much. I think I loved it just the same as I loved Holiday Romance. There's not one I prefer over the other. I thought they were both so good. I think they both have their strengths. Like, I like different things about each one. Holiday Romance, I feel like the storyline was just so fun and it had a stronger plot. I also loved the way the romance developed in that book. Friends to lovers is my favorite trope, but I just thought it was so well paced and the tension in that book was so good. Whereas with Snowed In, I feel like its strength was that it had so much emotional depth to the story. It had a lot of layers, and I feel like the couple was stronger in this book. I just loved the main characters, Megan and Christian. I feel like they're so different to the types of characters you normally see in romance novels. They just brought something new to the table. They were so multifaceted and dimensional, and they felt like real people. Also, Snowed In had some spice, which I was not expecting. Not that Holiday Romance was closed door, but I do think the sex scenes in that book were fade to black, if I'm remembering correctly. And I remember reading it, I was like, I wish this book just had a little more spice. I feel like that would just bring this book up a notch for me. And in Snowed In, I loved seeing that they had both an emotional and physical connection. It made the book better. I thought the spice was so well written and I loved it. So a pleasant little surprise because I was expecting this book to not really have any spice in it, and it definitely was a little bit more explicit. Nothing like crazy, but it was really good. I seriously need everyone to go read these books. I'm never gonna shut up about them. If you pick up any books for the holidays, please let it be these. I feel like you should read Holiday Romance first and then read Snowed In, but you definitely can read them on their own. They are interconnected standalones. So whichever way you prefer, if there's one story that sounds way better than the other, you definitely can read one without reading the other one. But recommend them both. I loved them. Literally begging everyone I know to read them because they were so good. I'll shut up about those books for a little bit to tell you that last night after I finished Snowed In, I did read for an hour in Baggage Claim by Juliana Smith, and really an hour was all I could read before I'm like, okay, I need to call it a night. And I know I did this to myself. Going into these books, I knew what all of them were about. But I think I might just be getting a little burnt out on the whole fake dating trope around the holidays to make dealing with our families easier kind of thing. Like, it just feels so repetitive at this point. And I feel like this book in particular, like, it's cute. It's not that I don't like it, but I feel like it's just not bringing anything new to the trope. Like, I'm only an hour in, 15% in, so I can't judge it that hard yet. But I don't think it's gonna, like, blow me away based on what I've read so far. Like, it's perfectly fine, and part of it I think is me just getting burnt out on reading the same trope over and over. But my Kindle says I have 4 hours and 20 minutes left of read time and baggage claim, which lines up really well with how much time is left on the timer, which is 4 hours and 30 minutes. So unless I end up flying through baggage claim, I feel like this will be the last book I read for this video. So I'll conclude the vlog with a wrap up either later today or sometime tomorrow. So I will talk to you guys then, unless I just have more updates on baggage claim for you. Hi guys, last night I finished baggage claim and it ended up going pretty much exactly the way I thought it would. I feel like the book was very average. I didn't love it, but I didn't not like it. It did have really good Christmas vibes. Our male main character is very sunshiny. He loves Christmas. Our female main character is more on the grumpy side. So while they're fake dating, he's like taking her on all these Christmas themed dates, trying to get her in the Christmas spirit and make her love the holiday as much as he does. So that was super cute. This setting was also very Christmassy and wintry. It took place in Aspen. There was lots of snow. They did lots of winter activities. So that part of it I did really like. I never really felt like the storyline was that strong though. I felt like some of the dates they went on were just kind of brushed over. I didn't feel like there was anything really pulling me into the story, making me really connect to the characters and get that invested in their relationship. I just feel very in the middle about this one. The one thing I will say that I really didn't like about this book is our female main character was dealing with this family drama, and I feel like from the moment it was brought up I knew exactly what it was, and I was just waiting for everything to be revealed to figure out all the details. And when we finally got the revelation about what actually went down and why they had this family drama, the details surrounding it and like how everything played out, I thought was so stupid. I hesitate to recommend this to you guys. I feel like if it was on your list and it sounds really good to you, definitely pick it up, but I wouldn't rush out to get it by any means or bump it to the top of your list. This one was just very so-so to me. So to wrap up this readathon, I started this on Saturday, ended it on Tuesday, so I am really proud of the fact that I read basically 4 books in 4 days. Like I said, I feel like doing the timer method really did help me to stay focused because I didn't want to have to pick up my phone to stop the timer if I stopped reading. So I was just really motivated to read for long periods of time, and I feel like it helped me get through a lot of the books that I had on my TBR. I feel like if I didn't do this challenge, I probably would still be reading Love Light Farms. So I would say it definitely was a success. To conclude this readathon, I'm going to tell you guys my final thoughts on all the books, my star ratings, and if I would recommend them to you guys. The first book I read is Love Light Farms. While this book did take me a while to get into, it ended up being so worth it, and I ended up falling in love with the 2 main characters. I loved their relationship. They had amazing chemistry. The tension between them was so good, and I was rooting so hard for them to get together. And I love how this book set up future books for all the side characters. I cannot wait to continue on with this series. So I decided to give Love Light Farms 4.25 stars. The next book I read is 'Tis the Season for Revenge by Morgan Elizabeth on my Kindle. This one had so much potential because it is very Legally Blonde coded, which I love. The first few chapters were so fun. I was loving the setup, loving the premise, but I felt like the relationship between our 2 main characters was mostly just focused on their physical connection, and from the halfway point on, there really was no plot line other than the 2 characters just having sex with one another, and it didn't really work for me personally. I love a spicy book, but the spice in this book really icked me out and made me see the characters in a different way that I didn't want to see them in. So I was not a fan of this one, and I wouldn't recommend it. I gave this book 2 stars. I feel really similarly to this book as I do Window Shopping, so I feel like both that book and this book get pretty mixed reviews. So if you loved Window Shopping, I feel like this book might work for you and you might love it, but if you're anything like me and have similar book taste to me, then maybe skip this one. Then I read Snowed In by Catherine Walsh. This book is technically the second book in her little holiday romance series that she's written, but you can read it separately. They are interconnected standalones. I loved this book so much. The 2 main characters felt so different to any characters I've ever read about. I feel like they just brought something new to the table. They felt like real people, and I loved reading about them. I loved their relationship. The banter in this was so good, so witty. It had me laughing out loud, and this book had so much depth to it. It had a lot of layers. I will say the scenes where they were back in their hometown with all of their family kind of slowed the story down a little bit for me because I didn't love the hometown setting with all of the side characters as much as I loved just seeing the two of them getting to know each other and spending alone time together. But I loved this one so much. It was definitely my favorite that I read for this video. I gave this one 4.5 stars, which I also gave Holiday Romance, the first book in this series, 4.5 stars. I think if you're gonna read any holiday romances, make it be Holiday Romance and Snowden because they're both amazing. And finally, I read Baggage Claim by Juliana Smith, which you just heard my thoughts. I feel very in the middle about. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it, but if it sounds like your thing and you've been dying to read it, definitely give it a try. I didn't not like it, but very average to me, and I settled on a 3 stars. But just know it is a very low 3 stars. Like, I feel like if I think about it too hard, it could be like a high 2-star read, but I feel like 3 stars, mediocre rating, somewhere in the middle, feels right for this one. So with that, I'm going to end off the readathon. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what's on your holiday TBR this December. If you've read any of the books that I read for this video and what you thought about them, or if you plan to pick any of them up, let me know in the comments below. If you did enjoy watching, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and hit the red subscribe button if you are not already subscribed to my channel so that you don't miss any future book videos from me. I will see you so soon in my next video. Bye guys.